So I know most of you in the room, but for the ones I don't, my name is Carl Sanfilippo, broker owner of RE/MAX First in East Brunswick as well as in Cranford. We do these trainings about once a month. Things we're going to learn about today. We're not going to learn about the latest and greatest high-tech technology on how to get listings. Who here knows who Chris Smith is? Curator. I've heard him say this, so I got to give him credit because this wasn't my line. We're also not going to learn about the latest and greatest $19.95 a month that's going to get you sellers. And I say this in all my trainings. There are companies selling to realtors making millions of dollars. Who here gets phone calls on their cell phone from a certain area code and they know not to pick it up because it's a sales call and they're trying to sell you something? We have such a target as an industry on our back for vendors trying to sell us stuff. There's a company out there called Commissions Inc. Commissions Inc. charges a lot of money to realtors for their CRM and what they call an IDX website. Commissions Inc. just sold to National Fidelity for millions. Millions, over 10. The number was something crazy. There's another IDX website called Real Geeks that just sold for millions. There is a lot of money at stake, and I always tell realtors you can spend $19.95 a month and go broke in this business with all the stuff that they try to sell you. Not how to win because of your brand, right? This is about you as the agent. It's not about your brand. It's not about your company. Every company is going to skew the facts, right? I mean, there's two companies right now that battle on this stuff all the time. We're number one. We're number one on Mondays between 9 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock in the afternoon. We're number one on this. Guys, sellers don't care. You need to dial in and focus on how you're going to help them. Not how to brag to win listings. This one is like my biggest pet peeve. Like people go in and they go to the seller and they say, I'm Circle of Excellence Magenta, whatever the color. Seller's like, I have no idea what that means, but thank you. That's funny because the other person came in and they were Circle of Excellence Yellow. Right? It's really about dialing in, again, how you can help them. It's not exactly all what you have to do. Right? Obviously, you want to show that you have experience and you're going to be helping them. But in the appointment is not the time for you to brag about how great you are. But what I'm going to do today is show you when you should take that time to brag about yourself and how that's going to bring value. Okay? So yeah, the bragging thing's big because I know a lot of agents that do that, and I hear a lot of sellers' feedback, and they brag so much that they never address what the seller needs. We're going to talk about how to systemize your listing process. Who here, when a seller calls and says, we'll use it, hi Olivier, I would like you to come over and I'd like to give you a market analysis of my house. How many agents in this room have a process from the time that phone call happens to through the listing appointment and after? Not many agents have a system of this is what I'm going to do. And I find that funny because listings are such a huge key to this business. 99% of realtors go in, they're still winging it. Things we're going to learn about today. The 3 C's you need to become a great listing agent. 1, you need to be consistent. Right? You need to be consistent with your marketing. You need to be consistent about how your listing presentation flows. You need to be consistent practicing your listing presentation because you're either practicing with somebody or you're practicing with the actual homeowner. I'm going to use this consistency. I'll use this as an example. I was speaking with somebody who was talking about trying some marketing technique. They said, yeah, I tried it. It didn't work. I said, well, how long did you try it for? They're like, 1 week. And I said, that's funny. If you go to the gym for 1 week and you don't lose 30 pounds, do you think the gym doesn't work? It's being consistent. It's having the routine down. And people don't think they need that for their listing presentation, but I'm telling you, if you don't have it and you're not systemized and you don't have a routine for it, you're losing listings that you should be winning. We're also going to talk about confidence. You have to be confident when you're going in to list a house. If you're not confident and you're nervous and it shows, the seller's going to see it, they're not going to be confident with you being their listing agent. And it's not always about price. And it's not always about commission rates. Anybody in this room ever win a listing and they know the price wasn't as high as another realtor or the commission wasn't as low? Confidence is extremely important when you're speaking with a seller. We forget this as realtors. Most of the time we're dealing with that person's biggest asset. And they want somebody who's confident and who's going to help them. You have to be clear as a listing agent. You have to have major clarity. Being a big listing agent in this market is not easy. But you have to be laser focused on what you want and how you're going to get to that point. So we're going to talk about how to have real conversations with sellers and how to set expectations and enjoy listing the homes. Has anyone here ever had that seller that every time they call your cell phone, you're just like, oh, what? Am I the only one that's had that? Oh, that's funny. Maybe it's my personality, right? I had that. And that was my fault for dealing with a seller like that. I'm going to say it again throughout the presentation, but I say it before. I actually said this to an agent the other day. She's not here. She's like, yeah, this seller was just demanding too much stuff, blah, blah, blah. You think I did the right thing by not taking it? And I said to the agent, I said, some of the best listings you're going to take are the ones you don't take. And when you get really good at listing houses and you get really good at your listing presentation and you start having an abundance of listings, there's nothing better than telling a seller, no, I don't need you. I don't need this. I made this mistake. I tell this story all the time. I listed a house in Sayreville. It was one of these things, I want the house for it should be listed for $600,000, pink countertops. I'm like, yeah, $600,000. Somehow we listed at $470,000. She controlled the whole listing appointment. She controlled everything. I remember it was my honeymoon on my birthday in Hawaii. When I had spoken to her and said, listen, I'm going to be away for 3 weeks on my honeymoon. When we come back after Labor Day, we're going to revisit everything. Yeah, sure. No problem, Carl. I agree. I'm like, oh, all right, that was easy. In Hawaii, I'm like, take your listing and go. Because I'm not dealing with you anymore. And being able to do that is a fantastic feeling. But you got to do that when you're coming from a place from abundance, not from scarcity. So being really clear on what you want, and if you really want to focus on listings, you have to be in a routine of prospecting for listings. You can't just wait for the phone to ring with somebody who wants to get their house listed. Right? There's no magic pill to this. There's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could take. There's nothing that a real estate guru who's going to charge you $40,000 a year to be your coach going to give you for a magic pill to list houses. If you're not confident, if you're not consistent, and you're not clear, you're never going to list a lot of houses. You have to be consistent. Consistent routine, consistent prospecting, consistency, consistency, consistency. Right. There's agents in the market, because I hear other agents talk, I don't know how that agent gets so many listings. They're the worst agent. I don't get it. Everybody is probably in their head right now is thinking of an agent they think like that. Yes. Oh. Took me a second. But people are like, how does this person get so many listings? How do they do this? Number one, they're probably more consistent in their listing lead generation. And they have that confidence to go in to convert the leads. And they probably have a better system. right? I mean, the system is such a huge thing, and I'll use this as an example. Frank, you can't answer this because you've answered this question before. Who here makes like a mean cheeseburger? Like just like a great cheeseburger, you eat it, it's juicy, it's great. Nobody makes a good cheeseburger in this room. Do not, and none of you invite me over for dinner. Eric, you make a great cheeseburger. Will you ever sell as many cheeseburgers as McDonald's?
Never.
Why?
Marketing. Not being able to market the cheeseburger.
And systems.
Branding, systems.
Most 9 out of 10, would you say 9 out of 10 people would probably rather eat your cheeseburger than McDonald's?
Probably.
Right? But what does McDonald's have? They have marketing, they have consistency, they have systems. They don't have a superior product, but they have the other components. That guess what? Most of us in this room are probably never going to hit that level. I mean, McDonald's is a machine. Right? Something to think about. List and lead generation, one quick way you could do it. Farming. I still think farming works when it's done right. I have a stack of postcards. I'm like the worst at this. True confession. I save every postcard that comes to my house from an agent or a letter that comes from an agent. My wife collects them, and I have my wife, she's like, did you see this one? Would you call this mailer? I'm like, no. Right? I still believe farming works because less people are doing it than they did in the past. I don't get as much mail as I used to get because all my online bills and stuff come electronically. So I actually look through my mail. And what I say with this, without going too much in depth, is if you're farming, offer some type of value. Do something that makes you different from everybody else that's mailing. If I have one more person send me a mailer with like a key on it and say like, I'm the key to the sale of your house or something, I'm just, I like want to call the realtor and say, hi, this is Carl at Remax First. I got your mailer. Do you have 10 minutes to talk? You got to make yourself stand out. Why am I going to call Ivan over Eileen? Someone's got to stand out in the mailers. Internet marketing. This is going to tie into something else. This works. Who here has ever heard of HomeLight? Who here has ever heard of Agent Machine? Right? It's funny, a lot of times realtors are like, oh no, that stuff doesn't work. I've signed plenty of referral checks to these companies. What they're using is they're using the internet, they're using Google pay-per-click, they're using Facebook ads, and they're getting in front of buyers and sellers and handing them off to a realtor for a referral fee. So anyone who says it doesn't work, it's already happening. People are just doing it at a better level than we are at a local level. So with the internet marketing too, Facebook ads, tied into landing pages, website geared towards sellers. If you're targeting sellers, you should have a website that targets sellers. And if you're doing a farming or anything, you should probably put the website about more seller information. You don't want to take a seller and then shoot them to a website where they could search for houses. If you're marketing towards short sales, you should probably have a website all about short sales. You don't need to have an IDX website where they're searching for houses. Okay. Referrals. This is still the bread and butter of most people's business. If you do not have a consistent method to reach out to your past clients, spheres, whoever refers you business, you got to get dialed in on that. And I do a whole training about working by referral. So I could talk about this just for like 2 hours because I'm pretty passionate about working by referrals. I laugh because I'll sit with agents who have 50 deals and we break down their deals and 45% of them are referrals. And I say, well, what do you do to reach out to your clients and referrals? And they say nothing. I'm like, oh, that makes business sense. Let's ignore your biggest part of your business. And let's spend more money on stuff that we're not generating business. So your sphere of influence, your vendors, your past clients. Zillow and Trulia. This is not me sitting here saying I love Zillow, not Trulia. We could debate about that for hours, but sellers are looking for realtors on Zillow and Trulia. It's this proof, social proof. People are choosing realtors on Zillow like they're buying toasters on Amazon. They're looking at how many stars you have. They're looking at the reviews They're looking at the past sales. So what I tell people is I'm not saying you have to sit here and pay to be on Zillow, but you should take the extra effort to make sure your Zillow profile is up to date with sales and reviews, because I guarantee you people you're going to meet on listings are looking you up before you walk in the door. And if you're not where it should be, you don't want to walk into a listing presentation to say, how come you only have 2 recent sales in the last year? Oh, well, that's Zillow, and now you're just bashing Zillow, right? You want to go in and be like, oh, I saw you had all these recent sales. I read the reviews. It's going to give people you don't know when you're meeting them on a listing presentation more comfort to work with you. So it's really, really important that your Zillow profile is up to date, recent picture, things like that. Buyers, right? I was never always the biggest, like, hey, you should do a ton of open houses. In this market, you do an open house, there's people waiting at the door for you to open the door. A lot of these buyers are sellers. Because right now, too, a lot of people who bought in 2008, 2009, 2010, or who bought in like 2007, 2006 at the height of the market, now have this thing called equity or break even in their house, right? They pay down the mortgage, prices have gone up. Now they can actually sell these houses to move to a bigger house. We bought a condo that was too small. We had kids, we need more room. They buy a single family house. They wake up on their daughter's birthday, a tree falls down in the front yard. That was my morning, right? That's what happens. I had a tree fall down. But luckily it took out my neighbor's power, not mine. But it was a great thing to wake up to this morning. FSBOs and expireds. I always tell people, hey, Carl, how do I get listings now? So you want to get listings now, there's this weird thing on your desk or in your pocket. It's got 9 numbers on it. You press the buttons, and it contacts you with other human beings. It's called a telephone. You get on the phone, you call expireds. That is your quickest means to get listings today. Everything else can take time, right? Farming, consistent, time, everything. All this takes time. Get on the phone, you call people who expired, you do it every morning, you do it consistently, you get listings. In my experience, most people just aren't dedicated enough to consistently do it long enough. But if people say quickest way to get a listing, call expireds. I like calling expireds. I don't know, like I did it with an agent the other day for fun. I think it's fun. I'm wired that way. I get not everybody's wired that way, but for me, it was always something I was comfortable with. A lot of people know here, I've listed a ton of REO properties in my life. People are like, how did you get into the REO business? I cold called banks. I called a Countrywide, I called their 1-800 general number for Countrywide. And I called and I called and I got past the gatekeeper. I got to the person who makes the decision. I mean, that was just your typical B2B sales, business to business sales. The phone is still a great way to generate business. And I have to say too is being good on the phone is still a huge value in this business that too many people overlook. If you can't convert on the phone, you can't get face to face. All right, rule number 1 about listing about property. It's not about you. It's not about your ribbons. It's not about your awards. It's not about your statues. It's about them. Sellers don't mutate in the middle of the transaction. If the seller is tough at that listing appointment and they're trying to control the listing appointment, that's how your experience is going to be. They don't mutate. The lady who gave me a tough time on my birthday, on my honeymoon, she gave me a tough time from the minute I met her. She didn't change one bit. Sellers have selective hearing and memory. How many times, I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth. Oh, I'm putting words in your mouth, right. They have selective hearing and selective memory, and you have to keep that in mind. And I'm going to show you in a little bit ways to work around that. Guys, I still wholeheartedly believe, I set a listing appointment for someone yesterday, and I did it as a 2-step process. We're gonna go a little bit more into it, but I said, hey, listen, we're gonna come to your house on Friday. We're gonna do a quick walkthrough. We're gonna walk through the house. I'm gonna get as much information I could get about the house. And then do you have time on Wednesday? And then I'll come back out and I'll give you a deep analysis of your house based on my walkthrough. Does that sound fair? Yes. Set both appointments. I know what happens. Realtors are always like, I don't know about this 2-step process. What if I go the first time and then they come back and then they list with somebody right away and they cancel my second appointment? People have a tough time canceling that second appointment. How many times have you been in an appointment and you're going for the close and like, well, we have a third appointment set up. We don't want to disrespect that realtor. We want to go through all 3. And you walk out of the house going, I'm not getting it. Right? I'm not getting it. This is a good way to reinsure you're that third person. And I'm big on the 2-step process from experience. I was in Hillsborough. Someone wants to list their house. It was a referral, and it was parents of someone I wrestled with in high school, like one of my teammates in high school. So I go in the house. I got all my numbers and everything prepared. I'm like, I'm going to wow them. I'm going to show them I'm still not that kid from high school. I was dead in the water. I walk in the house. I had all my numbers. I'm like, oh, wow, they have a huge addition on the back of their house. Wow, it's actually really nice. All my numbers are wrong. I was the worst appointment I ever had in my life because I was so thrown off when I walked in the house that I lost all my confidence, right? I lost one of the C's. I'm just like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like trying to like adjust it in my head. I have comps for you. None of them are good. I'm thinking in my head. If I had taken the extra 10 minutes, drove there, walked through the house, took some notes, and said, hey, listen, now I'm going to come back now that I really know what's in your house, and then we can go from there. Who here has been in that argument with the seller? The house sold down the street for $610. They had a brand new kitchen. They had this. They had that. Right? You get in the argument. They have hardwood floors. You have pink carpets. Right? But if you do the 2-step process, it gives you a little bit more time to go back. Because at the end of the day, does any seller really want to hear their stuff is not as nice as somebody else's? And you get in that confrontation. I stay away from that. Again, rule number 5, the listing property now is more competitive than it's ever been. Who here has buyers, but you just can't find them a house? There's no inventory. I go on the hot sheet, something comes up, there's 5 offers. House has been listed for 2 minutes and there's already 3 offers. People send, right? It's how the market is right now when something's priced right. But it's also a great market to be in if you're carrying 10 or more listings. Right? You're working a lot less weekends. Oh yeah, we'll do an open house in 2 weeks. Price right. You're not doing an open house in 2 weeks, it's sold. Right? Now that open house turned into a Sunday where I could watch the Giants. Because nobody here wants to watch the Jets. Just want to make sure everyone's listening. Right? But that's how it is. So it's just so much more competitive. So if you're not sharp, I keep saying this, but if you're not sharp and you're not on top of your game, you're going to be losing. Why do you want to be a listing agent? A listing agent is just leverage. You sell a buyer a house, right? We're just going to do, you got one transaction out of it. Right, and then you hope you get referrals or everything from the buyers, but it's one deal. You work with the seller. Who here has had the listing that just mushroom affected, right? You have the listing, you double end it, right? Rocco's not in this room, Agent Rocco. He got this for sale by owner. He was calling for sale by owners. He got the for sale by owner. He took that for sale by owner, and we always joke, so he got the for sale by owner. He found the buyer for the condo. Then he held an open house, and from the open house, he got a buyer, ended up listing that buyer's house, sold that house, and then once they sold the house, then sold them a house in Princeton. So the one for sale by owner mushroomed into 5 or 6 deals. The income difference in that one listing compared to that one buyer was huge, right? I mean, I could think of it, right? You just have that deal, you're like, whew. I just call it the mushroom effect. And they're fun. Like, this is a great deal, right? And then you start getting nervous because you're like, if one domino falls, or the rest of the deal is gonna fall. But if you get through it, it's awesome. The National Association of Realtors have a study that you spend on average, and I want to see if anybody knows, how many hours do you spend on average per NAR with one buyer? Anyone? 40. Yeah, you've heard this before. How many times do you spend with seller? 5? Oh, you spend 10 hours with a buyer. So that means in the same amount of time, you're spending 75% less time with the seller than you are with the buyer. And I know some of you heard me say this too. Time to me is just as important as money. Bill Gates can make another $45 billion. Bill Gates can never be 25 again. So if you're not valuing your time, you should be. So it's so important that if you leverage listings, once you list, it's not just that transaction, the listing, but it's all the buyers and everything you get from it. And I'm still gonna say this, one of the best buyer leads you can get, in my opinion, is someone who calls off that sign in the front yard. Forget Zillow, forget Trulia, forget Realtor.com, forget all that. If you have somebody who's in front of the house calling off that sign in that neighborhood, seeing the outside of the house, it is gold. I don't know about you guys, maybe I'm the only lucky one, who's taking an internet lead to a house. You meet them at the house and they go, oh yeah, nah, we're good, thank you, and drive off. Like, well, that was a great hour of my time driving, getting ready for it for nothing. Sign call is not going to do that. And a sign call is probably looking in that area. So if they're not interested in that house, it's probably a lot easier to set them up in other houses, right? Because sometimes you get the internet lead where you're looking, I don't know, I'm looking from like Roselle Park down to about Ocean Township. You're like, oh, that's great. Sure. I didn't want a life. Let's go. Right? Sign calls are usually people in front of the house ready to go in that neighborhood. So the truth is, if you want to be a listing agent, you still must master your listing presentation. Most important thing you can do in your career is master the listing presentation. Right? This is just some quick math. If the quest is for more money and less time, then you have to master the listing presentation. Again, this is going back to the 40 hours for a buyer, 10 hours for a listing agent, for a seller. And if any of you guys, what you could do is at the end, if you want to give me your business card, I'll be happy to send you the slides so you don't have to take pictures. And I'm also going to send you the questions that I would use during listing presentations. Because I think really good questions sets you apart. So again, I want to go back to the unique selling proposition. Right? When you're dealing with a seller, there is so many people to choose. Right? Well, I think I could sell it through Redfin for 1%. I saw a company come back and they all drove Mini Coopers and they said they could sell the house in total for 3% because now they're back. No offense, Olivia. In case anyone doesn't know, Olivia used to work for Foxton, so I always try to take a Foxton's joke in my trainings. And for the record, Foxton's didn't hire me and told me I wouldn't make it in real estate, so I was pretty happy the day they went out of business. Again, sorry, Olivia. Anyway, discount brokers are coming back big time. The market's better. You saw them go away when the market was tough. I mean, literally go away, right? I'm ready to see companies like Help You Sell come back. Like it's coming. And if you don't think it is, you're fooling yourself. So this is when you have to really dial in on what's your value, because some companies, you're just not going to be able to compete on commission. So what makes you unique? Right? Take a second, jot down a couple things that what makes you a better agent. Because I hear this all the time. Oh, I'm a better agent than this agent. Why do they get all the listings? It's like the cheeseburger. The best cheeseburger doesn't sell the most. This is the part everybody loves. I call it the interactive part. Anyone want to share what thinks makes them a better realtor?
Better listener.
Follow up.
I like that. Follow up. And then what I would say to this is, if you're projecting your value, right? I say this all the time too. I actually just said this to Tim, who's videotaping this. The worst thing you can do is have a client sign up with you and say, if I knew how great you were, I would have signed up with you earlier. When I hear that, to me, that's my fault. Because you're not portraying why it's so great to work with you before they sign up with you. Right? I'm a great listener. Well, what makes you such a great listener? The person in here before said they listened to me really well. Right? And I just say, I follow up. How do you follow up? Well, I guarantee within 48 hours of a showing, I'm going to have some type of feedback for you, even if it's nothing. So it's always about trying to push it to that next step to give that value to the homeowner, what makes you different than the next realtor. Right? People don't always remember the money, they remember the experience. So commission is not always top of mind. And listen, I'll use this as an example. I mean, I bought a car. I buy Jeeps, right? I have Jeeps. So I go in, I take my wife, she was pregnant at the time, we go buy the Jeep, it's like 100 degrees in the room. And we go somewhere, they're trying to sell us, and they're asking all these questions about what we want. They're trying to sell us stuff that we don't want. Oh, we'll give you this deal, this. They bring the manager out, you know that routine, right? They bring the manager out, I just want to get out of here. He actually gave me a pretty good price on the car. I went and bought it elsewhere because the experience was so much better. I maybe could have saved $250, but I was thinking in my head, like, I'd give $250 not for that manager to come back out and, start circling around me like a vulture. It's not always about the money, it's about the experience. Rarely do people say, hey, how was it selling your house? Oh, it was great, I only paid 2.5% in commission. Oh, my realtor was great. They took care of X, Y, Z. They took care of the C of O for me, right? C of O's in towns now, especially around here, are getting so complicated. North Brunswick, all the towns in Middlesex are starting to get these full-blown COs. They're all starting to become nightmares. Dude, helping homeowners through that is a huge value, and they don't even know it. They don't even know how bad it is.
They're becoming worse than the appraisals.
Right, it's becoming really bad. And one of the things we do is we send out a survey every time a house closes about the person's experience with the company and with the agent. And I never get feedback like, oh, great, the commission was this. It's always like, oh, the realtor helped me through the C of O process. They made this transaction as easy as possible. Not once have I ever saw like I was really happy with my commission rate. Because at the end, that's not what people are thinking about. It's the emotional part. Why should someone hire you? Right? I would just take a minute and think, like, why should someone hire you over someone else? We're the #1 website. Every company says they're the #1 website, right? Because of this advertising, right? And educators, homeowners are becoming smarter. They're like, well, what do you do besides put it in the MLS? I know when you put it in the MLS, it goes everywhere. Like, what else do you do? Realize like, oh, well, I, do a broker open. That's about it. But it's true. Like, what do you do? Oh, well, it's funny you say that, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. Yeah, putting the house on the MLS and getting out to the websites are easy. But here's 200 steps of what we do during the transaction for you, from beginning to close. Yeah.
Two of the things that I do, I take out the 2 contingencies that the buyer has. So I tell the seller that I'll be there for the mortgage application, mortgage
Right.
appraisal, and through inspections for them.
That's great.
Takes out everything that they're worried about, because that's the only 2 contingencies the buyer has.
That's great. And that's something that's real, something that